And at 10, don't run. What do you do if a group of bad guys is coming after you at a good pace and you have no way to defend yourself? You get the hell out of there faster than my dad trying to get milk, faster than William's wife left him, faster than me going outside when someone asks if I want to get Taco Bell. The fact that we're in this tiny office is pretty ridiculous when you think about it. Like, honestly, why would we stay in this room when we see on the security cameras that the animatronics aren't nearby? We can just like book it and be safe. Like, why isn't there a one-way emergency exit out of our office if this is such a hazard? We stay in this room, and that wouldn't happen in real life if you were in any sort of actual danger. In Game Lab, MatPat's old YouTube Red series, we saw him take on a real FNAF experience. However, when the animatronics were close, he didn't run away, he stayed in the office. Which could be used to say that since we consider that our safe space, we would do the same. But if our life was actually in danger, like mortal danger, we are gonna die danger, we would run like the wind, and not work there for 7 days before getting fired. Then at 9, animatronics. Now, ignoring the whole possession thing, since that still isn't real, I've seen no evidence of it, especially due to intense agony, the whole servos locking up so we need to let them roam free at night thing is complete and utter BS. Firstly, in a world where we can have shape-shifting animatronics and discs that emit such high-frequency sounds that they alter what we see, I'm supposed to believe that a servo motor is going to lock up? Secondly, why do they need to free roam in the first place? They just stand on a stage. A servo motor creates linear or circular motion, which is not the kind of movement the animatronics need. I mean, it could be, but if these are so complex that they can move on their own, why would they lock in the first place? Not to mention the whole, yeah, someone got bit on the head so we're gonna stop making them roam around freely. Like, why would you do that in the first place? Or the fact that kids literally tear Mangle to bits and then put her back together. Ironically, because, you know, put you back together. But still, it makes no sense. Before I continue on, can you do me a huge favor and hit that like button if you're enjoying the video or just the channel in general? And feel free to share this with a friend if you're so inclined. It really helps us out against the algorithm and lets us know what you want to see more of. And you know, helps me keep my job. Thank you. And at 8, technology. Speaking of animatronics, what is up with the technology in this world? They're so advanced, but at the same time, they have the same tech that they would have in that era. The illusion discs are already crazy overpowered. Like, life is a perfectly balanced game with absolutely no exploits, but those things are absolutely nuts. And then there's the Funtime animatronics, where Baby literally stores a claw in her stomach and can capture children, and their AI is so advanced that Ballora can talk, and she isn't really possessed. Unless we go off the FNAF novels, and even if we did, it's from 5 different kids, so they would just be gargling. And the animatronics' ability to free roam is incredible. They were doing this before they got possessed as well, so their AI is incredibly advanced. Yet for some reason they don't have smartphones or better computers. Like, NASA would be interested in the AI of these animatronics, so why is there other pieces of technology that are the same as they would normally be in that era? It makes no sense to me. And at 7, fan games. There have been multiple instances of people in the comments using points or story elements from FNAF fan games to try to prove my theories wrong. For example, a while ago, a YouTube user commented saying that Vanny's mask appears in a fan game called Aftermath. So my statement of her mask appearing in a DLC to a game that's meant to look back on past tragedies of the franchise, and that could mean that she's from the past, would have been false, even though Aftermath is a fan game that has no canonicity in the main series, which I don't understand because, like, why would you try and use a fan game to prove me wrong? Like, on a video that has nothing to do with that theory, no less. Like, you didn't even comment it on that video. You commented it on another video. Someone else even commented on yet another video where I included fan characters for context, since the main series didn't have 10, where they said fan games don't count since they're non-canon and are in a different universe. Which was trying to be a dig at me for using fan characters, but since there aren't 10 Springlock victims in the actual FNAF series, in the books or the games combined, I kinda had to. But this only supports my point. If I can't use fan games in a list, which I can because it's my list, you can't use fan games as evidence for a theory, and I don't do that either. And at 6, limited power. The original difficulty of this game comes from the fact that you have limited power, at least in FNAF 1. This adds stakes since you can't just keep your doors closed the whole time, and you can't just keep the lights on outside. And it's explained to us, and just flat out told to us in the survival logbook, that the building has limited power after 12 AM. Why? That makes no sense. Absolutely none. Why would a building have restricted power after midnight? I've never heard of that before. And unless the franchise owner is extremely cheap and doesn't want more of an electricity bill, there would be no reason to set up a system that cuts you off. Plus, if that's the case, why risk a more costly lawsuit in that case if someone does get hurt or dies because of the limited power? Even if you won and didn't have to pay, you still have to pay the lawyer fees, because by no means would any judge make someone who got injured at work pay for the company's fees. At least I'd hope not. Especially when the game takes place. Halfway through into number 5, real life. The Twitter account DiamondZia on June 27, 2020 tweeted out 3 photos with the line, "FNAF will be real in 48 hours." These pictures were of news articles. One from USA Today titled, "5 children have gone missing inside Chuck E. Cheese. Parents report smells coming ... One from Associated Press called, quote, "Post-hour worker at Chuck E. Cheese reported dead at 27. And a final one from the Something News titled, "Night shift worker at Chuck E. Cheese claims strange movements from animatronics during post hours." However, this title had animatronics spelt incorrectly. It said amicatronics. Everyone was freaking out, and pictures of the articles, particularly the first one, were shared all over the internet. People were like absolutely spamming everyone, especially because this was around the time where Chuck E. Cheese had announced its closure. However, people didn't realize that these were fake. How are they fake, do you ask? It's easy. They just edited the source code, okay? Because you can change what anything says on a website, but it will only change for you until you reload the page, okay? And you can do this by editing the source code. You just need to find the aspect you're looking for, and then you can change what it says. Once you do that, you can do basically whatever you want. You can even change pictures, okay? So whoever made the original image just found an article from USA Today. It didn't even have to be about Chuck E. Cheese, because they could have changed the picture, and they just changed the title to 5 missing children going missing, and like the same thing with the other articles. Hence why there were only images of the articles and not actual links. It was a hoax that blew up, and people actually believed it, and some still do. And for business deals, the people behind the Fazbear Entertainment Company, whether it be some board of directors or William Afton, aren't the brightest bunch. The ideas are there, but they're not executed well. Why the living hell would hiring someone to make games about the tragedies that took place in your restaurants ever seem like a good idea? That shouldn't have worked in the slightest. The main concept of using a game to make fun of the deaths of kids is already pretty messed up. And while it seems to have worked in the FNAF universe, why did they ever try it? Those events now will never be lost in time. Those games are there forever. And if they're as popular as the games are in our world, there are people who made whole YouTube channels about the series. At least when YouTube comes out. When does YouTube come out in this world? Like, I know one kid said MatPat's line in one of the Fazbear Frights books, and then the book said, as his favorite YouTuber says, but like, when did that story take place? After 2005, or was YouTube around earlier in this timeline? Because if it is, am I still the host on Top 10 Gaming? I kinda wanna be canon in FNAF 2. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Mrs. Afton death. The story of Mrs. Afton, if there even is one, is a mystery that we've been debating for ages. A story that hasn't even had a slight amount of explanation, okay? No references, no mention of an actual name, nothing. So naturally, there are theories about it. However, these theories have no actual base in game lore and instead focus on FNAF animated music videos for the most part, and stories that are treated as canon and sometimes scarily heavily so. The truth is, okay, we have no idea what happened to Mrs. Afton currently. We don't know if there even was a Mrs. Afton, or if it was just a baby mama, or if William had like a surrogate so that he could have his own children and just paid some woman to have his kid. Hell, okay, these kids may just be adopted for all we know. Either way, for some reason, and I don't know what video really caused this to pick up, a load of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident and then is now possessing Ballora. I mean, it's a possibility, certainly, but that doesn't mean that it's canon. This is still a problem to this day, with many people just a couple of days ago trying to tell me what happened, mostly treating their statements as fact. A couple examples, if I may. Quote, "William killed Mrs. Afton. He stuffed her body into Ballora." Or, William Afton killed Mrs. Afton and Mrs. Afton now is Ballora in sister location. And Mrs. Afton is Ballora now though. That last one was meant to be a fact. Like, there is no interpreting it otherwise. They intended that on being like a correction. All of these are equally possible, okay, but nothing is actually canon. And as far as we know for certain, Baby is the only possessed sister location animatronic. And I think that the fact that there's so much fighting against what actually actually happened to Mrs. Afton indicates that none of this is true. The other animatronics may have like the remnant in them from the original Missing Children robots, but that's it. A Ballora themed staff robot being present at a table in security breach only means that Ballora was meant to represent the mother, not that she possesses the animatronic. Are we saying that like William is possessing the staff bot and so is Crying Child? And yeah, no, we're not. So like she's not possessing Ballora. That's not a thing. Ballora isn't possessed. Penultimately, in a number 2 investigation. Speaking of trying to find out what really happened, why didn't the cops? We know that there was an investigation thanks to the Midnight Motorist minigame from FNAF 6, but they never found the bodies, even though the animatronics smelt like death and were oozing mucus and blood. So much that they had to actually shut down according to the FNAF 1 news clippings. So what gives? Why did they close their investigation so quickly? Or why didn't they look into the suits when it was reported that they were leaking blood? I don't care if it's the 80s and the police don't have the tech they do now. If a place you were investigating missing people but found no bodies had something that is leaking blood, you go check that shit out. You don't just leave it behind and say, that can't be related. Who the hell thinks like that? It's so disgusting to me, and honestly, even though it's a game that has to have a reason to continue, they should have done more. I get that if they had found the bodies, we wouldn't have gotten so many games, but sometimes it's quality over quantity. Guess they had to meet their arrest quota for the month or something, so they just dropped this case like it was coal. Finally, in at number 1, doors! You knew this was going to be on the list. I hate the goddamn mother-loving doors in this game. Why do they open when the power is out? That makes no sense. Even if it's an electromagnet, like everyone keeps saying in the comments whenever I bring this up, those require power to turn on. So if anything, it would be costing power to keep the doors open rather than closed. Gravity doesn't work in reverse. If the magnet is off, the door would just fall down. I get that it's supposed to be for gameplay purposes, but what in this universe makes this make sense? There is no conceivable way that these doors should be working in that way, but they do. They do, and it makes me mad. Why do you do this to me? Sky Daddy Scott, why? I really want merch that says Sky Daddy Scott though, for real. That would be hilarious. Just like Scott's avatar on like a cloud. Yes. An intent hiding spot. This is based on the story, but how the absolute living hell did William get away with this, okay? Hiding the bodies in animatronics? Dude, the smell of rotting bodies would absolutely ruin anything. And the heat from the animatronics moving would speed up the actual decomp of the bodies inside, thus making it worse. And the animatronics are in front of other children every single day, okay? Like, parents even started complaining that the animatronics were leaking mucus and blood, as well as, quote, smelling like death, okay? If this was real, and William getting away with this wasn't important for the story of the games, he would have been caught instantly. They never found the bodies of these kids. Like, oh, we never found the bodies of these kids that supposedly went missing in this pizza place. But now their animatronics are starting to leak blood and are reporting to smell like death. Maybe we should check these out. Oh man, look, 5 dead bodies corresponding to different victims that went missing on the premises. William, you're under arrest. See, like I don't get how this wasn't cut and dry. How this didn't just... How? In at 9, Mrs. Afton's death. This is more so embarrassing because of the community as a whole. The story of Mrs. Afton, if there even is one, is a mystery that we've been debating for ages. A story that hasn't even had a slight amount of explanation, okay? No references, no mention of an actual name, nothing. So naturally, there are theories. However, these theories have no actual base in game lore, and instead focus on FNAF animated music videos, and stories, and fan fictions that are treated as canon, and sometimes heavily so. The truth is that we have no idea what happened to Mrs. Afton currently, alright? We don't even know if there really was a Mrs. Afton or if it was just like a baby mama or a one-night stand, or like maybe William ended up having like a surrogate so that he could have children of his own, alright? His kids may also just be adopted. There's a whole series of explanations as to what can actually be the case. But either way, for some reason, okay, and I don't know what really caused this to pick up, a load of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident. Like, I mean, it's a possibility. That doesn't mean that it's canon, okay? Technically, literally, there's infinite possibilities, okay? I mean, there are also others that think that William killed her or that she just left him because she found out what he was into, but then again, for some reason, she would also have had to leave him with his prime demographic. Others think that the reason that she left was because he started killing. Others think that she died in a plane crash. And you know what? All are equally possible, but nothing is actually canon, so stop treating it like it is, because frankly, it's embarrassing. In a Princess Quest. Another embarrassing moment from William. Alright, the whole reason he made Princess Quest a thing in the first place was to lock Vanessa away and prevent her from regaining control of her body whenever William needed it, okay? So why the hell did William create some sort of fail-safe to let her escape? Like, okay, maybe he didn't expect Gregory to come along, or maybe he did and figure it out, I don't know. But given the track record of this series and the amount of times William himself, just alone, has been burned, literally, you think that he would have smartened up already. But you know what? He didn't. And you know what? It's like having a self-destruction button, okay? It's like having something on the inside of the Iron Man suit or on the outside of the Iron Man suit that someone can just tap and then boom, it doesn't work anymore. Like, why? Why would you do that? It's stupid. If you want something to work, why give it away to not work? Like, this is one of the dumbest things that William has done. And it's 7 wall tiles. FNAF 3 is a trippy game to say the least. With multiple different endings and a load of puzzles along the way, the supposed to be final game of the series takes some weird turns. But I think the most egregious offense is the freaking goddamn wall tiles. Why do you have to dial in a phone number on some panels in the wall in order to set souls of dead kids free? Like, what? Where did that come from, and why is nobody questioning this anymore? Like, the other games came out and we just forgot about this. Was it because the series was meant to be a dream but isn't anymore? Like, is it because William had left some weird security pad behind these tiles? Is it not real at all and we're just tripping balls? Because honestly, with the amount of hallucinations and fear we have, not to mention any sleep deprivation that could also be happening, it's entirely plausible that this just isn't real at all, and that these wall tiles, special minigames, and shadow Bonnie action figures we do see are just a result of multiple different issues. That, or it's the reason William started killing. Because, like, WTF. And it's 6, Pizza Bot. One of the most interesting things to me in Security Breach was the Pizza Bot minigame, where you choose to go to the bottom of the Pizzaplex, and then, like, you go through the vent and try to escape the Pizzaplex instead of going through L chips. At that point, you end up getting locked in a security office where Chica is outside the only working door. So, to lure her away, you need to make a pizza using one of the chef bots. So then she goes and gets the pizza, and then you can leave through the door. It's actually like a really cool look into like the Fazbear Kitchen and how it operates now, with service bots kind of taking up the positions of people because they can be unpaid, but also I'm guessing are more reliable to not kill people than humans, which is kind of funny when you're talking about this series. However, the funniest part about it was when I got stuck in the sauce machine and decided to say, "Oh no, Steph Chica," and that's what made this embarrassing for me. I said in a different video I would talk about it at some other point, and this is that point, okay? I don't know how it happened, but when I was making the pizza, I got phased into the sauce machine, which resulted in me being unable to actually finish the pizza, so I just had to wait to be jump scared to retry. But while I was waiting, I decided to say, "Oh no, Step Chica, I'm stuck in the sauce machine. I hope nobody comes by and licks sauce out of my," and then I won't finish that sentence because I think it's fairly evident where I was going. Yeah, that was a low moment for the barnacle. Halfway through into number 5, Dead Afton. Okay, here we go again. There's gonna be so many mad comments on this video. William Afton didn't die in the spring locking incident that we see in FNAF 3's 8-bit minigames, okay? He didn't. I know there are still plenty of people who think that he did die, but he didn't. MatPat even said it himself, since the majority of people who are saying this are also the ones who say I'm wrong because MatPat said whatever, so, okay? He said in one of his FNAF 3 or 4 timeline theories or something that to note that you don't see William die in the suit, okay? You see him convulsing because of the spring locking and then twitching, but he never stops moving. And thanks to the man in room 1280, we know that William was being kept alive by the spirit of one of his victims that the book calls Andrew, but the game's called The One You Should Not Have Killed. And we know that these are meant to help fill in blanks from the past, thanks to a Reddit post from Scott from 2020 saying, "Let me at least say this, future games will look forward, but the novels will fill in some blanks from the past." So this book single-handedly gives us a reason as to how William survived all those years other than Remnant, okay? The One You Should Not Have Killed was possessing him. and might still be. We don't know. In at 4, disturbing desires. So this is something that I've noticed in the comments that actually worries me, as well as pretty embarrassing. So we've made a series of videos about how we could turn the closed Chuck E. Cheese restaurants into FNAF joints, okay? Or even like just one ideal location. Not in Utah, though, ironically. But you see, in the comments of those videos, which you should totally go watch, by the way, then share them with Scott, because I want to kind of do that even if it's just open for like a week or a weekend. And I mean, like, if Mr. Beast can open fast food, I'm sure Scott can make this happen, okay? The comments, though, on those videos are full of various people telling me how they think it would be a great idea, because then they could die in the FNAF restaurant and go on to possess an animatronic. What? Why the absolute living would you want that? First of all, okay, possession, not real. That's not a thing in real life. I've yet to see real evidence of it or anything else paranormal. In addition to that, though, even going by FNAF rules, you would need to suffer in order to die and generate the agony that is needed to possess something. Since in FNAF, all possession is actually just a manifestation of your extreme agony grabbing onto something that's nearby, as we learned from Fazbear Frights and Dr. Phineas Taggart. In at 3, business expansion. When a company undergoes a tragedy like 5 missing children, you can usually assume that they're either going under or will never be the same. This would go for any company, but especially a company directed at kids. Like, if Chuck E. Cheese actually had this happen, nobody would be taking their kids there. But for some reason, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has not only been able to keep their doors open, but make them bigger, opening an entire shopping mall based on their characters. What the, like, how the actual hell did this happen? From having to shut down at the end of basically every FNAF game, to opening an entire mall-sized pizzaplex that has even more opportunities for your kids to get lost in? What the ever-loving crap happened to make that work? This has to be the most ridiculous form of logic in this series. I'm not even exaggerating. I don't care how many comments say that they would love a real FNAF. If it was actually real and there were actual deaths, you'd be scared crapless to go there. You wouldn't actually go unless you were an adult with no kids, or a YouTuber trying to put together the mystery of what really happened, and to see if their pizza is recycled. But ultimately, in at number 2, purple versus pink. The purple versus pink guy debate is the Mike versus Will Trap debate, okay? But it's from the early days, when all we had to worry about was different colors and not like 14 different purple characters. This debate came after FNAF 2's Foxy Go 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 minigame, where some fans believed that the guy standing in the corner all smiley was a different group of dead kids, and it was a different killer because he was slightly lighter. That's right, he was not the exact hexadecimal code for purple that we knew, so we thought it was a different person. And you know what? This is stupid. Don't do this, okay? They're all the purple guy. It says so in the FNAF like handbook or whatever it's called. It says purple guy, okay? He's the purple guy. Stop it. Leave me alone, okay? I only use the pink guy when I need an extra slot on a list because there's not enough William Afton versions or something like that, okay? It's purple guy. And finally, in at number 1, the Bite of 83. The Bite of 87 was one of the most mysterious moments in the entirety of the FNAF series, and it was introduced in the first game. Being introduced in the series into FNAF 1 from 2014, the Bite of 87 has remained one of the most debated points in FNAF history, and we can't quite agree on what happened. At first, we thought it was Golden Freddy who caused it, then Freddy, then Mangle, then Fredbear, then Toy Chica, then back to Mangle, and then everyone in between. And everyone has their own opinion on the subject, but for some reason, most people think that FNAF 4 is the Bite of 87. However, it's been confirmed that it's the Bite of 83. Okay, if you Google the Bite of 87 as well, you get pictures from FNAF 4, which is not helping. And I don't think it helped that one of the most famous lines Markiplier's ever said was that the Bite of 87. It wasn't, Mark. I'm sorry. Okay, it's been years. Everyone needs to stop it, okay? The Bite of 83 is FNAF 4, and I still see it in the comments today, so stop it. And at 10, the Bite of 87. The Bite of 87 is one of the most mysterious moments in the entire FNAF series, and it was introduced in the first game. So we've been dealing with this thing for like nearly 10 years. Being introduced into the series in FNAF 1 from 2014, the Bite of 87 has remained one of the most debated points in FNAF history, and we can't quite agree on what happened. At first, we thought it was Golden Freddy who caused the bite, then Normal Freddy, then Mangle, then Fredbear, then Toy Chica, then back to Mangle, and everyone has their different opinion on the subject. But for some reason, people also think that it's confirmed that the Bite of 83 from FNAF 4 is the Bite of 87. which it isn't. And if you look up Bite of 87 on Google, you get pictures of the Bite from FNAF 4, which is in 1983, which is, as I'm sure you can tell, confusing for our editors. I'm sure that you're seeing pictures of the incident now, honestly. Like, the Bite of 87 and 83 have been confused for ages, and they're still being confused to this day. Mostly because of Markiplier asking if that was the Bite of 87. Honestly, it's kind of frightening based on how many people get mad at me because I go against something MatPat said, but then also tell me that I'm wrong, that it's the Bite of 83, not 87, even though I agree with MatPat on that point. And at 9, the 2-eye theory. The 2-eye theory states that in FNAF 3's bad ending, there are 2 eyes lit up in the head and the back, which we assume to be Golden Freddy, to show that there are 2 souls inside the animatronic. This isn't the case, okay, and I'm just gonna tell you why. Firstly, it would be more difficult to tell that it was an animatronic head in the back if there was only 1 eye lit up, since all we see of this head are the eyes. And the second eye being lit up could very well just be a reflection from the first light, since it's so dark. Notice how Freddy also has light coming out of his other eye, but he doesn't have a second soul. Secondly, Crying Child wasn't introduced into the series yet, not coming until the next game that wasn't even going to happen until the community was disappointed in the Springtrap jump scare. Since this was supposed to be the end of the series, that's why we released the Souls in the Happiest Day minigame. Also notice that only 1 person wears a Golden Freddy mask in that minigame, and according to the official Freddy Files Updated Edition book, quote, you'll see an image of broken animatronics heads, each with a lit eye, meaning that Golden Freddy in the back only has 1 eye lit. And considering how this is the official guidebook to the series, we kinda need to take it as law. And at 8, Sparky the dog. In the early days of the first game's lifespan, someone began to spread rumors online about a hidden 6th animatronic named Sparky the dog. Sure enough, screenshots began to crop up on Tumblr of this secret animatronic. Of course it was Tumblr. Reportedly, Sparky the one-armed dog was a non-violent animatronic and would never attack the player, only appearing occasionally in the backstage doorway, hence why we never saw them. However, it was eventually revealed as a hoax by the creators, Tumblr users Kodaibear and Win, with all the screenshots being photoshopped. I mean, I feel like that would have been pretty obvious, but I don't know. Did you ever think that Sparky was real? Like, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, at this point, my knowledge of FNAF was limited to exactly what MatPat said, because I was terrified of anything horror related. Yeah, like even the Eddie Brock becoming Venom scene in Spider-Man 3 was terrifying. But yeah, I mean, I played it. I played FNAF 1 on like the bus home from school, but I did it muted, so I didn't have to deal with the jump scares. Okay? There was a girl sitting next to me, I felt pretty badass. And at 7, Mic Trap. The Mic Trap versus Will Trap debate, at least in our comment section, seems to be over. Well, at least it was until other videos went out, because, you know, people are gonna start trolling again. However, the debate over who is in the Springtrap suit is sometimes still heavily debated on other comment sections and like on Reddit. And this is specifically thanks to the final scene from the sister location final cutscene that involved the final speech from Michael and the reappearance of Springtrap, confirming theories about him surviving the Fazbear Frights fire. However, the appearance of Springtrap, accompanied by the line of "I'm going to come find you," left some people thinking that Michael was the one in the Springtrap suit instead of William, also leading to the conclusion that Michael was the purple guy instead of William, which is also wrong, as confirmed by Scott when he said check MatPat's explanation on the subject, which MatPat concluded that Michael had no way of being the purple guy and thusly is not Springtrap. But, you know, people are still yelling about it. Even Scraptrap reignited this debate. Like, people now think, or at least used to also think, that Scraptrap was Michael or William, and that Springtrap was William or Michael. And at 6, Cassidy. In my personal opinion, I think the idea that Cassidy is the one you should not have killed is wrong, okay? Here come the comments, I know what's gonna happen. In my head, okay, there is way more evidence for Crying Child being the one you should not have killed. If you're interested in the reasoning for that, to actually see if I may have a point instead of just getting mad right away, please go check out that video. It's linked up in the iCard, either now or later. However, the main reason I believe it's Crying Child, aside from the rest of the evidence, is because William would have been the only one around for Crying Child to possess when he dies in the hospital. Cassidy was around the Golden Freddy animatronic, but unless William brought his work with him to the hospital, which is highly unlikely given the fact that his child's head was crushed, in 1983, possibly before Golden Freddy was even created. So reasonably, if Crying Child was going to possess someone, it would end up being William. He would then come to see the horrible acts his father would commit 2 years later, and then intend on keeping him alive so that he could suffer for them. Since in the end, it was William's fault that Crying Child died, since he had superpowered Fredbear's jaw, again, which is the only thing that makes sense. It's a mistake not to consider that a possibility, but I can already hear the comments now. Halfway through into number 5, FNAF AR. I've said it before and I will say it a million more times. Why is the company sending out animatronics that they know are dangerous? The whole point of FNAF AR is that the company is sending these animatronics to try and rebuild their reputation. Same thing with Help Wanted. But then they see that they're infected with a virus, turning them hostile, but instead of recalling them like any normal company, they send out more animatronics, including multiple versions of the killer that caused them to lose their reputation in the first place. They did not think that it was just an older Bonnie model and decided to call it Springtrap. If that was the case, it would be listed in AR as Old Bonnie or Spring Bonnie, not Springtrap. They know exactly what they're doing and nobody has called them out yet. Companies will get in trouble for making a freaking tiny mistake in their game, but this company can get away with just letting people die? That's sus as hell. Purple is sus. And in 4, Princess Quest. According to one very adamant viewer during my recent 24-hour live stream, okay, there's a theory going around that Matt had also talked about, now that everyone seems to believe, because again, Matt had talked about it, that the princess in Princess Quest is actually meant to be Cassidy. And while I don't agree with this theory, it's still a theory nonetheless, so I'll talk about it. I'll give it its little moment here. This theory generates from some apparent files within one of the games, guessing that it would have been security breach since there are 3 Princess Quest games, and that would compared to the FNAF VR mobile version where there's only 1. But apparently, according to this viewer, those files indicate that the actual name of the character is Cassidy. I don't know how they really indicate that, and I mean, like, I don't know how anyone found that. They wouldn't really elaborate. They just kept spamming that it was Cassidy, despite me saying that I don't care about that, because that's clearly not the case in my opinion, because like if you think about it, in the first Princess Quest game, that's when you get trapped by Glitch Trap, right? That's when you get possessed by Glitch Trap, and then you spend the next 2 games trying to break free. Like, the only reason I'd believe that it's Cassidy is for purely symbolic reasons, since Cassidy is trying to torture William, at least if they are the one you should not have killed, which again, I don't believe, which would end up giving her motive to free Vanessa from William's control. But that's the only reasoning that I'd be able to, like, think for this theory, which makes it seem more like a hypothesis to me. And again, we get captured by Glitch Trap in the first game, which clearly indicates that it's actually Vanessa. And honestly, this could be what Vanessa's doing in her head. Okay? Like, this is when Vanny's taking over and Vanessa's not in control, this could be what Vanessa's doing, trying to fight back, okay? Getting close to the end in number 3, forgetting Foxy. I'm pretty sure that the Foxy mechanic was added to help keep the player from just keeping their screen down for the whole night, since I don't think you can really get jump scared if you don't bring up the tablet with the cameras unless like you're looking to the wrong side of the office. So Foxy was a way to ensure that you actually had to load up the cameras and hold them back, as a way to actually have the possibility of being jump scared. Because if you don't look at Foxy throughout the whole first night, he can actually jump scare you. However, forgetting about Foxy and not checking Pirate's Cove is a horrible idea, even if unintentional. My personal strategy is to put the camera on Pirate's Cove when you close the tablet, so that you make sure that when you open it the next time, Foxy gets his dose, okay? He gets his attention. And just like Peanut, the SCP, he'll stay in place. And that just makes sure that I don't forget about him either, because my reaction time isn't fast enough to stop him from getting into the office. But ultimately, in number 2, character names. The names of various characters over the years have remained mysterious. Sometimes they don't have a name, other times an alias like the purple guy, or other times they just get random names decided by the community. However, in all of these instances, they don't end up actually being canon. And something I've noticed a lot in the comments is the misuse of names that either have no origin or very weak origins and people believing them to be canon. One of the best examples right now is Crying Child and Mrs. Afton. Crying Child currently has 2 names that are really being used, Evan and Chris, although now there might even be Gregory, which is a whole other can of worms. But none of those names are canon, okay? And only one of them is an actual theory, and not even a strong theory at that. So far, they've only been able to find E, V, and A, and not the N in any solid fashion. And the whole Clara Afton thing is just very outlandish to me. Just because there's a name doesn't mean it belongs to someone, okay? Does that mean that like Crying Child's name is Vlad because the purple character was named Vlad, or is that William's new name? Like, no, guys, come on. Look, if you're going to apply those rules to Clara, you have to find someone who's named Vlad. Alright, that's the rules. And finally, in at number 1, origins. Going along with the whole we don't know anything about Mrs. Afton thing, or names are being misused, we don't really know why Afton decided to start killing people. And more particularly, kids specifically. He could just be your good old run-of-the-mill psychopath, but some people assume that it's because his kids died. However, that is literally impossible, since his kids died as a direct result of him wanting to kill other kids. Elizabeth dies thanks to getting scooped by Baby that was specifically designed for that purpose. And Crying Child died after Elizabeth and as a result of an animatronic with too much bark in that bite. Since like I've been saying in other videos for ages, there were no spring locks that could have failed in the mouth since it was already in suit mode, so all the spring locks had been released. Also, there'd be no spring locks in the mouth because it's an open mouth. So his children died as a direct result of him wanting to kill kids. It could have been that when his wife or baby mama or whatever Mrs. Afton was left him, that's what caused him to trigger, but we can't know that for sure. The truth is, we really have nothing to go off of as to reasons why William started killing, because it wasn't because of possession or his kids, because he doesn't learn about those until after he starts wanting to kill people, okay? Maybe a Fazbear Frights book will let us know when like the 12th one comes out with all the discarded ones. I don't know. In at 10, Chica. The problem with this, it's embarrassing because every time I bring up Chica, I can't help but make some form of crude joke about her. And not like a stupid joke like Kentucky Fried Chica like I did for Top 10 Tastiest Animatronics and for that thumbnail. Instead, what I did for number 1 of the Tastiest Animatronics list, where I put Toy Chica as number 1, then said it was obvious as to why she was at the top, because she is one. Like, don't get me wrong, okay? I think that it was funny as hell, but that's still kind of embarrassing, since you know, like it's a fictional robot chicken, and I make jokes about wanting to sleep with. I don't know any way to put that delicately, honestly. I mean, like, I made the whole Top 10 Tastiest Animatronics list because I wanted to make that joke at the end about how Toy Chica was the tastiest. For real, that's why I made the list, so I could just say that I wanted to eat Chica. Yeah, embarrassing. That video was made when we only had 90 FNAF videos on the channel though. 300 later, and I cry anytime I hear a nose honk. And at 9, 5 honks at Cali's. And by Cali, I mean California. Since back in 2014, when the first FNAF game came out, Smosh Games did their first FNAF Game Bang, as they were calling it. Game. YouTube game, where they all played a round of the game, and the person who survived the shortest amount of time before getting killed had to put on a werewolf costume and dance around in the street in an attempt to get 5 cars to honk at them, only being able to take the costume off when they did. Now, this would have been more embarrassing if it wasn't Lasercorn who got punished, or maybe now I just think that that would be way too fun, but honestly, I remember this video so fondly, and at the time, I thought it was pretty embarrassing. Like, nowadays, I'd probably just do that for fun, and instead of having to be forced to do it because I lost a game. But still, at the time it was pretty rough to watch. Not as rough as some of their other punishments. Wrestling and lubricant definitely comes to mind, but these were the good old days of YouTube where people watched Minecraft mod reviews and my music taste was limited to Minecraft parodies. Oh, and when I didn't talk about FNAF for 8 hours a day. And at 8, Manglevent. Eddie VR is one of the most popular VR tubers on YouTube currently, with over 6 million subscribers at the time of recording. He was really put on the map though thanks to his FNAF VR Like a Mexican series, which he also continued with his FNAF Security Breach Like a Mexican series on his second channel, which also used to be his main channel. Long story. Anyway, when starting up his series, he was getting a feel for the game. This involved him popping into some of the mini games, freaking out, and then quitting. And after staking his head outside the office in FNAF 1, thus triggering a Foxy jump scare, he hopped into the Manglevent repair level. Now, his initial reaction was that this doesn't seem too bad, but when the lights go out, he starts freaking out a bit. But when it really got embarrassing, but also hilarious, was when he started the level by flipping the first lever, right? The one that's in front of you that you have to get real close to. And then he went absolutely ballistic when Mango was right there in his face. Of course, he was calling it Mangoes, which made quite a few commenters more than a bit upset, but still, absolutely hilarious, but I'm sure not for him. And at 7, Hiding Spot. Okay, again, how the absolute living hell did you get away with this? The smell of rotting bodies would ruin any place that you're in, okay? It doesn't matter if you're eating, if you're dancing, I don't know, committing murder. The smell of rotting bodies always puts a damper on things. And the heat from the animatronics moving on like all their insides, because you know, it's heat. It would speed up the decomposition and make it stink even worse, because heat always makes things worse. And the animatronics are in front of people every single day, okay? People even started complaining that the animatronics were leaking blood, as well as, quote, smelling like death. If that was real life, William would be gone, okay? He would have been caught instantaneously. Like, oh man, we never found the bodies of these kids. Wait, hold up. These animatronics are leaking blood, smell like death. Call Agent Booth. We need to check these. Then they found the missing kids. Alright, Afton is under arrest. They already suspected him. And I mean, like, having bodies hidden in your animatronics where you're the technician for the suits and also, I don't know, the CEO. Yeah, you're instantly incarcerated. I don't know. I don't know how this wasn't just a clean-cut case. Okay, I know that was important for the story of the games, but it shouldn't have happened, alright? His whole plan is a dumpster fire of embarrassment, and I love it. And at 6, panic. Honestly, looking back, panicking at all during a FNAF game is pretty embarrassing, since nothing can really hurt you, and while yes, in VR it definitely feels like you're really there, it's not really going to cause any danger to you. Although, I will say that I am totally a little bitch when it comes to horror, okay? The first time I played FNAF VR, I played it on the channel, and I'm already bad at normal FNAF, so playing it in VR was even worse, okay? I was even worse, which resulted in me running out of power on the first night, which is kind of my signature move. So, as the slowed March of the Toreador started playing, I was freaking out, and I knew that was pretty embarrassing. But not only that, I actually then proceeded to survive the night since the time hit 6 a.m., thus making all that panicking worthless and for nothing. I'll let you in on a little secret though, okay? Well, what you saw was embarrassing. The reason I find it so embarrassing was because I was closing my eyes in the headset. Yeah, I had planned on reacting to the jump scare sound, since I would be able to tell audio-wise and I wouldn't have to deal with Freddy in my face, but yeah, closed my eyes in a VR headset because I'm a little bit. Halfway through into number 5, Elizabeth. Speaking of mistakes, let's talk about his own daughter. I get it, because she's a mistake. Actually, we don't know. She might be. I don't know how William thought that, like, this was a good idea, though. Like, I feel like this guy, like, trying to brainstorm how to capture kids more efficiently, and, like, he hadn't even started killing at this point. He's like, oh, I know. I can make a robot to lure them in with ice cream and then grab them where they're close. Okay, so what's it gonna look like? Oh, let's call my daughter and ask for some design tips, you know? Then like Elizabeth ends up making the most predictable move ever and going directly against her father's instructions like a kid to go see the robot. That's basically perfect in her eyes. William, why? Why did you think that this wasn't going to happen? You had to lock your child in his room so that he wouldn't go to Freddy Fazbear's fucking pizza, and you think that your daughter isn't gonna walk up to an animatronic, especially at the age where they want to piss you off. And they're also seemingly loaded because you own a successful entertainment business, okay? Spoiled rich kids listening to their dad when they say to not touch a giant robot that was made to appeal to kids. Yeah, that's gonna work. God, you're a special kind of stupid. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. It is truly embarrassing, bro. Okay? All you needed to do was have a blacklist and say, don't kill these kids. And you would have been fine. But no. In at 4, FNAF 4 prediction. Oh, look at that. Once again, MatPat is on this list. However, I've made enough digs at myself. It's kind of equal, so I think it's allowed. But during the build up to FNAF 4, we really had no idea what was going on. And then once it released early on, MatPat thought that he had won, saying that in a rush to actually release FNAF 4, Scott missed a huge detail that made the game actually impossible, without even pointing out how anything is possible in a series about animatronics being possessed by the souls of the children and a killer who literally can't die. The entire theory relied on the point that this was the bite of 87, something that last time I noted is one of the most embarrassing debates in all of FNAF history, saying that if the frontal lobe of the brain had been removed by an animatronic, the kid that we play as wouldn't feel fear, thus the nightmare animatronics were impossible. And you know what? This would have been true had this have been the bite of 87. However, we now know that that is not the case. But since MatPat was stuck in con season, we'll give him a bit of a pass here. here. But seriously, looking back, it's pretty cringe, especially with what we know now. Like, looking back on any past theory, especially my own when more evidence comes to life, is a pretty rough deal, but yeah. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Crying Child. I've had a ton of people complain to me about how Crying Child's death wasn't William's fault, since he wasn't the one who put Crying Child's head in Fredbear's mouth, okay? And then the spring locks failed because he was crying. But let's be honest, there is no logical way that animatronic jaw should have crushed his skull. Even the spring locks, okay? The spring locks weren't active and would have required a lot of power to actually accomplish this goal with just normal opening and closing power of a jaw. So the only way that Crying Child's skull could have been crushed was if Afton had intentionally, for some reason, supercharged the jaw of the animatronic. Which, it would make sense if he wanted to use it as a kill machine, like as a prototype fun time, or maybe he wanted to use it as a backup kill suit in case Spring Bonnie ended up failing. Figuring more power in the jaw would help him, which clearly it did, just in literally the worst way possible. There's also no way that this is a spring lock failure, guys, okay? The suit was already in animatronic mode, meaning that the spring lock mechanisms that are the reason that it could fail, because they're used to keep the robotic parts to the size that someone can fit in the suit, weren't being used because it was in animatronic mode. So they don't need to keep the robotic parts to the side. The spring lock failure problem comes when those mechanisms are put under stress of having to keep the parts away from the person in the suit, okay? And then if they get wet, that's when they can loose, and then that's why they can't get wet, okay? Keep in mind that the term spring lock in this context is being referred to the parts that move the robotic bits away inside the actual suit. Since the suit is also referred to as a spring lock, I feel like I kind of need to clarify that. And ultimately, in number 2, was that the bite of 87? Markiplier is commonly known as the FNAF King. Some consider Dawko the FNAF King, others MatPat. And despite our over 400 FNAF videos, nobody really thinks that I'm the FNAF King, despite me literally having King in my username, but that's fine, I'm not salty. However, the biggest embarrassment, at least in my eyes for Mark, was the infamous line, "Was that the bite of 87?" said after watching Crying Child get chomped on at the end of FNAF 4. Now, this was indeed not the bite of 87, but this single line sent the internet spiraling. Now, some people still to this day fight that FNAF 4 is the bite of 87, which it's not. The game takes place in 1983, okay, and it was confirmed as such in Sister Location. But either way, I've had multiple people follow me on either Instagram or TikTok, which you should totally follow, by the way, because I'm posting more FNAF content on there. But a lot of these users have had their names as some version of this line. The one I can remember the most, which is probably because it was the first one, was that the bite of _87? And then after that, a whole lot of them came. I don't know why. I mean, it's probably something that Mark wants to forget, but I'm sure that Markiplier simps love it. Yeah, that's right, Jada, I'm looking at you. What do I need to do to be the FNAF King? God, I've only made videos for a year. And finally, in at number 1, Left Eye. This is definitely not going to help with the whole FNAF King thing. However, it's more of a case of not being the Direction King. So back when FNAF VR first came out, I was playing it on the channel a couple of times. Actually, no, this was like 2 years after it first came out. But when I first got it, like I mentioned previously, I was secretly closing my eyes because, again, I'm a little... However, the most embarrassing time for me was when I was trying to do parts and service levels. It starts off with Bonnie, and in becoming the purple guy in FNAF VR, which is a video on the channel that you should check out, the first instructions are to remove Bonnie's left eye. Now, I pulled out the left eye, but I kept getting jump scared, so I figured I was doing it too slow, or too fast, or I was hitting Bonnie instead of just pulling out the eye, so I tried it, and I kept trying, and I tried a lot, each time getting jump scared. And it wasn't until after the video, after I had filmed it and was editing it, that I realized that I was pulling out my left instead of Bonnie's left, which is a really stupid way of putting it, but I guess it makes sense given the series we're talking about here. Yeah, that was a rough one. I loved the comments on that video though. I was red-faced for like a month after this until I finally got my redemption. And at 10, killing where you eat. The biggest mistake that William ever made, in my personal opinion, and I will say this until the day I die, was the fact that he killed people in his restaurant, okay? It's unknown if this was always his intention, but like, come on. Who would think that this is a good idea? Like, who in the comments wants to come at me and try to justify killing your prime demographic in your place of business, okay? Dealers don't kill their customers, okay? Mechanics only bleed their clients dry of their money, not their blood. So like, why would William think that this is a good idea? Literally, go anywhere else. This is just like, it's basically killing in your house and then like calling the cops and saying, hey, I killed someone in my house. It's putting unwanted attention and scrutiny on literally everything you do just so they can try to catch you. Like, you even end up getting banned from going back into your building when the investigation is underway. And it's not like it helped your business. You had to close the first location because of this, resulting in you having to open another one that killed your daughter. So, yeah, pretty embarrassing if you ask me. All you had to do was go to the park or some random alleyway or like a laser tag place, and then boom, your kids would be alive, you'd be harder to suspect, and you'd be rich from your business, because honestly, it was a good idea, but you're done. And at 9, Cassidy. Assuming for this scenario that Cassidy is the one you should not have killed, this was also one of the most embarrassing things that William could have done. Or maybe he doesn't consider it a mistake, because like the one you should not have killed is kind of keeping him alive after all, although it's still unclear if they're doing that currently or not. But they're doing it as a way to make him suffer. So I feel like getting possessed by a child is pretty embarrassing. I mean, that, like, depending on the angle that you want to like look at, that I'm going with it's embarrassing. If I was possessed by a child, I would be embarrassed. I don't think I am, hopefully. But even if he does like consider this a good thing, or if Cassidy doesn't end up being the one you should not have killed, which in my opinion she's not, but like killing those 5 kids that made up the missing children's incident that likely ended with Cassidy, that's dude. Come on, we already talked about it. You killed in the wrong place. It's embarrassing. So, you know what? If you don't want to count Cassidy as the embarrassing mistake, count the missing children's incident as that mistake, alright? Just count it whatever way you want. It's on the list, deal with it. And at 8, Charlotte. While yes, Charlotte may have been Afton's first true kill, causing his descent into absolute freaking madness. In the games, Charlotte ends up possessing the puppet, who then gives life to the other animatronics, which causes you to disassemble them and release their spirit. In both universes where William kills Charlotte, it comes back to bite him in the ass since Henry comes after him for it, which results in what should be his death multiple times over. And not to mention how in the book specifically, unbeknownst to her at least, she is an animatronic robot that was meant to replace the daughter that Henry had lost. But it was also revealed that the animatronic is also Baby. You know, the baby animatronic that we all know and love? Yeah, who can switch between her forms at will, and then the human version doesn't remember being Baby. So yeah, Charlotte in the books is also Baby, which is also in the games William's daughter. And at 7, Music Man! Now, a more recent embarrassing moment, or maybe it's not embarrassing to him, MatPat was reacting to the latest trailer, at least at the time, for Security Breach, when he sees a giant Music Man crawl out of a hole in the West Arcade, a sequence we now know as one of the best in the entire game. But his reaction to the character's first appearance, iconic, with a very intense Music Man! MatPat flipped about being right with one of his mini theories about the legs we see on screen in Freddy and Friends on Tour episode 3 or 4, where he claimed that the white gloves really indicated that it was going to be Music Man. But this moment was not only iconic, but kinda memeified, with me referencing it multiple times in various previous videos, and the internet even remixing this into a song that is so much of a jam even Snoop Dogg would bop to it. I mean, like, there's also the whole meme of crying child as a kid wearing any shirt with 2 stripes thing that was going around, and then I even used it in a thumbnail for Top 10 Gaming Elite. That's probably more embarrassing, but I haven't really gotten to talk about the whole Music Man thing, so I wanted to. And at 6, Henry. Why did you think that killing Charlotte wouldn't have any consequences, okay? Like, you killed your business partner's daughter. That was probably pretty obvious to him, especially since he already suspected you were up to something, and he took extra care to protect his daughter, and then she still died. That is 100% the superhero origin story that Henry needed. A vengeful father if I have ever seen one, and he didn't even need vengeance when he was putting that green bracelet on his daughter. So then, you know what? Then he's after you, or it seems like it, and you don't kill him next, Like, killing Henry would have done so many wonders for your criminal career. I mean, like, yeah, the cops were already suspicious of you. As long as they can't find a body, they've already said that, like, they can't arrest you without a body, apparently. So, if they won't put you away for 5 missing kids, they won't put you away for a missing father as well. Especially a jury who has to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that you're the killer. And I mean, like, I don't know, that's kind of up in the air, and like, you'd rather not go to trial if you were being charged with murder, but still, without a body, there can't really be any forensic evidence. So if you just, I don't know, throw it in a wood chipper. Again, these videos are going to be the reason I get hauled into the police station. Halfway through, into number 5, spring trap rule. One of the other most embarrassing things that, while may not have happened to anyone or in any of the FNAF games, is just the sheer amount of famous internet rule images and videos that there are for these characters. But like, okay, look, with Chica, I get it. God damn it, there I go again. But the worst one of all, at least I think on the embarrassment scale, is Springtrap Rule 34 art. That rule being, for anything you can find on the internet, somewhere, somehow, there will be an adult version of that content. And unsurprisingly, FNAF and even Springtrap are not immune to this rule, unfortunately. But just think about that for a second, please. Most people consider William Afton to be dead, even if he's not actually dead. Which means that most people who look at this are looking at a dead serial killer's rotting corpse stuck inside an animatronic that has shoved every inch of him with metal and robotic bits and thinking, damn, that's sexy. I've had people DM me these forms of Springtrap images before. Like, bro, what? Why? Like, he's literally a man who should be dead, but is being kept alive by the spirit of one of his kid victims, and you want to see him flog the dolphin? This is the reason that God left in Supernatural. God has left the chat. Jesus has left the chat. Allah has left. Everyone has left. Satan has left the chat. In it for fun times. Now, there's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state of the art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping you could shed some light on those. Well, she can dance, she can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream. Yeah, with all due respect, those weren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton. Yeah, that classic line of William seemingly being interrogated by the police that plays the first time you open up Sister Location is definitely showcasing how embarrassingly stupid this guy is. The cops know what these animatronics are doing and are capable of, and what they were designed to do, so they instantly end up being even more suspicious of him. And considering, like, the circumstances, we can also assume that Elizabeth is inside the robot. Like, there's no way that they confiscated the animatronics before they had to close Circus Babies. So she is definitely still inside the robot. So they're definitely keeping a closer eye on him, and his daughter's in a robot that they're asking him about. Okay, bro, yeah, why? Designing the fun times as killbots before seemingly you actually had the rest of the FNAF roster, definitely an embarrassing moment. Especially considering how one of the fun times was meant to symbolize your dead wife. I don't wanna know how you were trying to fill that one with souls, bro. Leave me out of it. Getting close to the end, into number 3, the puppet. The puppet is one of the most iconic characters ever in the FNAF space. The character that gave life to other animatronics and William Afton's first victim, but also one of the simplest characters to contain. All you need to do in FNAF 2 to avoid the puppet is keep the music box wound. The game even tells you when it's running out of juice with a flashing icon on your screen, and then even a flashing icon next to the camera that you need to go to wind up the box. So imagine how embarrassing it is to get jump scared by the puppet when the game gives you a million warnings that you're about to be jump scared. Yeah, pretty embarrassing. And it's even worse in FNAF VR, since thanks to the way that it's set up, you just need to keep your finger on the wind button and then use your other hand to worry about the lights and the Freddy mask. That's it. It's one of the easiest FNAF VR levels because of this. But people still get jump scared by the puppet. And it's unfortunate, really, but still creepy because the way the puppet walks up to you in FNAF VR. At least like that way you literally see it coming, although at that point you also can't really stop what's happening. It explains how he got there though. He didn't just jump from his room and go around corners. Penultimately, in at number 2, Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in Security Breach was to lock Vanny away and prevent her from regaining control of her body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a failsafe to allow her to escape? I mean, sure, they didn't expect the size of a 4-year-old kid to come along and figure it out, but given the track record of William, you'd think that he'd have smartened up after at least 40 years. But that's like having a self-destruct button on the thing that's gonna save the world, that the villain can just come up and go boop. That's like some Austin Powers level comedy. Or like if the Flash had a steal my speed button on like him anywhere at any point. It's just stupid. If you want something to work, why give it away to fail? And then you let it happen. It fails because of a kid the size of a 4-year-old. Maybe, not even. This is one of the dumbest, most embarrassing things that William has had happen, and probably like the 3rd dumbest overall, okay? But seriously, what was the point behind the way to undo your evil plans? Well, that's like one of the most ridiculous, unbelievable things in a story about serial killers getting possessed and animatronic robots getting possessed. I know that it was like it was required so that we could have a good ending to this game, but like that ending isn't even canon, so we don't care about it. Okay, it was one of the dumbest things that has ever happened in this series. Why? Why would you do that? And finally, in at number 1, Springtrap. Being the genius behind some of the most advanced robotic technology in the universe, we expect a lot from William, okay? He's the suit technician, he's the main killer, he seems to be the CEO of the company, so he should really know what he's doing, right? Apparently not. Since after discovering that the original 5 animatronics were possessed, he disassembled them to learn their secrets. This inadvertently released the spirits of the original 5 victims, though, causing William to panic, which is understandable since firstly they're freaking ghost kids that he never expected to see again, and also because they're the ghost kids that he killed. Okay, so this absolute animatronic genius, the technician that has handled the suit maintenance for years and has explained to every employee the proper procedure for the spring lock suits, including the spring bodysuit that he uses, ends up climbing inside the suit in a panic in an attempt to make himself feel more powerful and maybe scare off the ghost kids. However, he's so smart that he didn't notice the moisture in the room, the leaking ceiling, which causes the spring locks that were active at this moment since it was in suit mode to fail, which would have killed him had he not been possessed by the one you should not have killed. Yeah, embarrassing.